here.
Yeah, you
How
look
was
good.
how was the inauguration?
That's weird. That's weird.
Missouri inauguration was good.
Yeah.
I had 3 siblings at the
I can't even go.
Trump's inauguration.
Oh.
Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah.
We are live now.
But that was interesting. And the clock's right.
That's awesome. It even looks good too. It's a
It
good clock.
does. Yeah.
Matches the gavel.
I'm going to call this meeting to order. For all that care to, please stand for an opening prayer and a pledge of allegiance. Let us pray. We are grateful for this opportunity to gather and make decisions for our community. We ask for guidance and wisdom as we navigate the discussions and decisions this evening. May our meeting tonight be productive, respectful, and fruitful, and may our actions reflect our commitment to serving you and our community. In your name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My apologies if that was a little bit loud. It's a new gavel, so we're getting used to it. But
Overzealous mayor.
as long as you all stay in line, we won't experience it twice. So as we call this meeting to order, I'm going to go ahead and open up citizens' participation. At this time, anyone wishing to speak to anything that is not on the agenda, please come forward. Seeing that there is none, I'm going to close citizens' participation and moving on to the consent agenda. I welcome the council to ask any questions or comments about item number 1 on the agenda. Seeing that there is none, I need a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
All of those opposed? Are there any abstentions?
Abstain.
Motion carries 7-0-1. Moving on to board, commission, and committee schedules. Our next city council meeting will be February the 4th, 2025. Board of Adjustment meeting will be on February the 6th, 2025. Planning and zoning meeting will be on February the 10th, 2025. And our next city council meeting after will be February the 18th, 2025. We have no old business and no tabled items this evening, and so we'll be moving on to new business. I need a motion and a second for the first reading of Bill 25-03 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
All of those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0-0. Laura will read the ordinance by title, please.
An ordinance of the City Council vacating approximately 5,928 square feet of sanitary sewer easement located on lots 1 and 2 of the Town East Minor Subdivision, VACA 25001.
Thank you, Laura. And we've got Patrick Ruiz here this evening to give us an overview.
Good evening, Patrick Ruiz, Associate City Planner. The City of Republic is requesting the vacation of approximately 5,928 square feet of sanitary sewer easement located in lots 1 and 2 of the Town East Minor Subdivision. The easement is currently unused for the intended purpose of construction and maintenance of infrastructure related to the sanitary sewer system. By vacating the easement, it will return the associated rights back to the property owners. In this case, Lot 1, which is already developed and owned by Town East Center LLC, and Lot 2, which is vacant and owned by Blue Current Credit Union. Based on this information, city staff recommends approval of the requested vacation.
Thank you, Mr. Ruiz. Do we have any questions or comments from council? All right. Do we have any citizens' comments? Doesn't look like we have any citizens' comments cards this evening. So moving on, and pursuant to 3.10F of the charter, staff is requesting the second reading of this ordinance during tonight's meeting. I now need a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 25-03 to be held during tonight's meeting, please.
Motion. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All of those in favor? Aye. All of those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Moving on to item number 3. I now need a motion and a second for the first reading of Bill 25-04 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
All of those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Laura will read the ordinance by title, please.
An ordinance of the City Council vacating approximately 8,118 square feet of sanitary sewer easement located on lots 1 and 3 of the Town East Minor subdivision, VACA 25002.
Thank you, Laura. And we've got Patrick Ruiz here to give us an overview.
Good evening again. So similar to the previous item that was just presented, the city is requesting a vacation of a sanitary sewer easement in the same general vicinity. That is approximately 8,118 square feet. However, instead of being located within lots 1 and 2 and owned by two different property owners, this easement is located within lots 1 and 3, and they are both owned by Town East Center LLC. City staff also recommends approval of this requested vacation since the easement is currently unused for the intended purpose for construction and maintenance of sanitary sewer infrastructure.
All right, thank you, sir. Do we have any questions or comments from city council? Seeing that there is none, do we have any citizen comments this evening? We have no comment cards. Pursuant to 3.10F of the charter, staff is requesting the second reading of this ordinance during tonight's meeting. I now need a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 25-04 to be held during tonight's meeting, please.
Motion.
Second.
Got two motions, 2 seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Moving on to item number 4. I need a motion and a second for the first reading of Bill 25-05 by title only, please.
Motion. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
All of those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Laura will read the ordinance by title, please.
An ordinance of the City Council amending Title IV, Land Use, Chapter 405, Zoning Regulations, Article 405-1, in general, Section 405.020, definitions, and Article 405-8, special use regulations, Section 405.670, generally, of the Municipal Code of the City of Republic, Missouri.
Thank you, Laura. And we've got Chris Tabor here this evening to give us an overview.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Chris Tabor, Principal Planner. The City of Republic staff is requesting the approval of amendments to Section 405.020 and Section 405.670. The intent of the ordinance change is to prepare the municipal code for the possibility of future incoming special uses, specifically data centers and vehicular tow yards. Staff is also asking to include some flexibility to this code that would allow City Council to consider uses not specifically called out by the ordinance, but which have been judged to meet the intent of the Article 405-8 Special Use Regulations. To this effect, staff has added definitions for data center and vehicular tow yards. We then added these uses under the appropriate zoning districts, as well as the more general use allowance to Section 405.670. So vehicular tow yards would be allowed to be located in C2, C3, M1, or M2 zoning district if a special use permit was allowed. Data centers would be allowed to locate in M2 zoning districts with a special use. Other uses not specifically listed in the chapter that the City Council determines to be of similar nature and character would also be allowed to be used on a discretionary basis for each of those items. The special use permit process allows City Council to allow certain uses where preferred, while also considering added limitations to those uses or restrictions on the project site through an accompanying development plan. The two specified uses that staff is calling out are uses that we expect to see in the future, data centers and vehicular tow yards. Data centers are becoming more common across the area, and these have the potential to create nuisances where they locate. So staff is encouraging an ordinance change that would give city council more control over the location of those uses. Vehicular tow yard use provides some flexibility for certain properties located around the city which are not easily occupiable by other uses due to some constraints on a given site's utility access and to the mix of the surrounding uses. Currently, tow yards are only possible in heavy industrial M2 zoning district. By adding this to the special use permit grouping, those activities, where appropriate, would be looked at on a case-by-case basis in situations where staff would not be supportive of an M2 rezone. So there are very particular places in the city where this might be appropriate. As I said, it's a case-by-case, but we would not want to locate, we would not want to allow an M2 zoning change with the expectation that this would follow if we couldn't support any type of M2 use. So this would give us a little bit of flexibility in some very certain situations where it might be appropriate to locate there. And then again, we're also asking for the last use, which is just a discretionary use for council for items not specifically called out in the special use permit, but which do meet the intent and character of the ordinance. We're recommending approval of the referenced amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Tabor. Do we have any questions, comments? Mr.
What brought this to your attention?
Data centers are, both of these uses are things that we have been hearing about in other communities and been encouraged by some of the various third parties that we work with to look at. There's other cities in the area that have been met with these types of uses, but they weren't prepared to take them in. And so, we would like to get ahead of this issue before we see something locate here.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harder. Do we have any other questions from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Campbell?
Mr. Tabor, remind me, do the special use permits come before us?
So they go through the public notice process. So we notify everybody in 185 feet, post the property, and then put it in the paper. It goes before the Planning and Zoning Commission for a public hearing, and then it comes to council for 2 readings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Mr. Gerke?
Well, I've read some stuff about other cities limiting the data warehouses. I mean, is it a drain on resources, or, I mean, I guess I don't understand the specific concern about it.
So the types of concerns that we would be most looking for are nuisance related, so loud noise. We would also want to, potentially limit screening. So we wouldn't want these things to, we have some places where these might potentially locate in where we site industrial sites that people still live in some of that surrounding area. We wouldn't want any of these to come in overnight without the ability to kind of mitigate some of those nuisances that follow.
Thanks.
Do we have any other questions, comments from city council? We don't have any citizens this evening signed up to speak, so please remember this is a first read. Make sure that you get with staff if you have any questions before our next meeting. Moving on to item number 5. I need a motion and a second for the first reading of Bill 25-06 by title only, please.
Motion. Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0-0. Laura will read the ordinance by title, please.
An ordinance of the City Council amending the employee handbook.
Thank you, Laura. And we've got Ms. Addington to give us an overview this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lisa Addington, Chief of Staff. As you all are aware, we typically update our handbook annually to ensure it is consistent and relevant. We do have a couple of new additions this year. The first addition is to our conflict of interest statement, which is section 210. With this addition, it's basically a non-fraternization policy, and will give additional clarity regarding relationships within the workplace. The second new addition is to our floating holiday, which we have labeled as discretionary leave. This is section 413. Keeping in line with our mission of being aggressively progressive, especially regarding mental health and work-life balance, we would like to add 56 hours of discretionary leave for employees to use during any work week that will actually condense their work week. Life occurs outside of or occurs when it conflicts with our work schedule. So this leave will actually be a use it or lose it leave. It will not be paid out upon termination, and they cannot request more than one work shift per week. It truly is to have those employees basically accommodate work-life issues that can conflict with their work week. Employees, additionally, this benefit aligns with our values from a recruitment and retention standpoint. There is verbiage added, so all of our other leave, the handbook can actually be represented as a contractual agreement. So we added wording to this discretionary leave that if we advance or we evolve our work-life balance initiatives into something else, this leave can be used in lieu of that. Additionally, discretionary leave will be prorated based on their hire date. Next is a change to Section 415, which is retirement, and this is to correct our current loggers L6 program with the city's match of Mission Square, which is 100% of the employee's contribution up to 4% of their base wages and their contribution. Full-time, we are now defining it as 36 hours versus 40. The reason for this is to promote flexibility. So those employees that want to work less than 40 hours, maybe they don't have enough leave time and they don't get paid, of course, for 40, but they're working less than 40. This will allow the employee to do that without any ill effects, them falling short of the 40 hours. There's additional changes, wording changes. As you can imagine, the review process is myself, staff, Megan, as far as the legal review. So once we accept all the red lines, there's some changes that always need to occur. We did make other wording changes just throughout the document to align with the intent and character of the handbook. Councilmember Shaw brought to my attention, we will also change the terms of counsel from 2 to 4 years, just to be consistent with our policy. Staff recommends approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Addington. Do we have any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Shaw?
on the addition of the conflict of interest, what is the disciplinary procedure? Who makes the determination on the definitions and how you're going to move forward on something like that?
We will be consistent with how we've always handled discipline. The policy does not go into that kind of depth, but it does talk about the responsibility and the types of relationships that could pose a conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Thank you, Lisa. Do we have any additional questions from council? Questions, comments? Seeing that there is none, we don't have any citizens here this evening to speak on the matter. So please remember that this is a first read and get with staff if you have any questions before the next meeting. Moving on to new business and second reading of ordinances. Item number 6, I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 25-03 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
All of those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0-0. Laura will read the ordinance by title, please.
An ordinance of the City Council vacating approximately 5,928 square feet of sanitary sewer easement located on lots 1 and 2 of the Town East Minor Subdivision, VACA 25001.
Thank you, Laura. Do we have any questions or discussion from council before moving on to final passage? Seeing that there is none, I now need a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 25-03, please.
Motion. Second.
Got a motion and a second. We're now going to take a roll call vote. Motion carries 8-0-0. Moving on to item number 7. I need a motion and a second for the second reading of Bill 25-04 by title only, please.
Motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. All of those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0-0. Laura will read the ordinance by title, please.
An ordinance of the City Council vacating approximately 8,118 square feet of sanitary sewer easement located on lots 1 and 3 of the Town East Minor Subdivision, VACA 25002.
Thank you, Laura. Does council have any questions, comments, discussion before moving on to final passage? Seeing that there is none, I need a motion and a second for the final passage of Bill 25-04, please.
Motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. We're now going to take a roll call vote. All right, motion carries 8-0-0. Moving on to other business and resolutions. Item number 8, 25-R-04, a resolution of the City Council authorizing the city to apply for grant funds through the Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity RAISE Grant Program, the Rural Surface Transportation Grant Program, and other similar discretionary programs to be used towards the Route MM expansion project. I need a motion and a second to take up Resolution 25-R-04, please.
Motion. Second.
Got a motion and a second. We've got Ms. Haynes here to give us an overview.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Karen Haynes, Community Development Director. The Builds Department is requesting council authorization in the form of a resolution to apply for discretionary grants to complete the MM expansion project. This is the section referred to as Section B from James River Expressway to I-44. Upon approval, we will complete the grant applications with our partner agency, the Ozarks Transportation Organization. This year's application will be our 7th application for federal discretionary funding for the MM corridor. Should we receive the full award of $25 million, we will bring a request back to council for authorization for the city's local match, which is anticipated to be approximately $1.3 million. Staff is recommending approval.
Thank you, Karen. Do we have any questions, comments, discussion from City Council?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Gerke?
So the 1.3, previously we looked at some things. Is that in addition to what we had before? Is it the same match as before?
This is consistent with the match that we have done in previous years' applications, in which we applied for the full $25 million available.
So no matter what if we received grant funds, the max could be 1.3 or less, or is it going to be 1.3 regardless?
We think it'll be approximately 1.3. There is a possibility that, based off of other funds that'll be coming in for that grant, it could be a little bit more or a little bit less, but we're anticipating 1.3. We would bring that back for council's formal approval before we are able to accept the actual award.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gerke. Do we have any other questions, comments from council? So I appreciate the fact that we keep going after this and keep going after this. So that seems like a lot of times, but I appreciate all the work that's gone into that and making this hopefully happen every single time.
We hope so.
We hope so, definitely. Any other further questions, comments from council? As this is a resolution, and we can call this immediately to a vote, all of those in favor?
Aye.
All of those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0-0. Moving on to reports from staff. Ms. Addington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, since our last meeting, we officially have a new governor and president. So we wish them much luck and success, protection over their terms, as well as all elected officials. Winter is here. We want to send a shout out to our public works crews for cleaning our streets so well with the snow and ice events, especially public safety. You have to respond regardless of the weather as well. So thank you to all. We had a great trip last week to Jefferson City. David was there several days. Karen and I met up with him on Wednesday. We were able to meet with several representatives and senators, and we are asking for additional funding. So hopefully we will be successful there, but we do appreciate all of their time. As discussed at our last meeting, we will be sending out a mailer to the citizens. However, that's going to be delayed a little bit. We decided that due to a lack of confusion to our citizens, we'll be sending out that mailer just before the billing cycle. So March billing cycle is when they will receive that letter. And then the annual report, I did bring mine. You should have received all of those at your home already. Those went out last week. And then our first council workshop of the year will be February 11th at 11 o'clock here at Builds. And certainly not least, please keep David and and his family in your thoughts and prayers. They are going through a difficult time at this moment. Other than that, just stay warm. 150 days until summer.
That's not very far. Thank you, Ms. Addington. Do we have any reports from council? No reports from council. Moving on to reports from the mayor. So last week, I know we had the groundbreaking out the library, and so it's great to get a lot of the great turnout from the community that week. I know we had a Councilmember Neal was out there. It was great seeing you out there. We had all three of our Greene County commissioners show up to that groundbreaking. And so it was a really great time, a lot of excitement, and so it was kind of one of those fun things. So I really appreciate everyone that was sharing with that excitement in the community last week. Not to be mayor obvious, but it's cold outside, so I'm very thankful for, you know, the police, the fire, everything that you do, that you have to go outside. I mean, it's regardless. It doesn't matter how cold or how hot it is, you have to go, and I really appreciate that. I know when it's 1,600 degrees below zero outside, being a firefighter is probably one of the toughest things in the world to do, but I appreciate, you know, all of your efforts. I appreciate the Public Works crew that really made, there's no perfect world, but in the perfect world I live in, I got around town, and so I was able to get around fairly quickly after our last weather event. So I'm really thankful for the Public Works, especially with the continued cold weather that we had. That had to be a difficult job just because you can't quite get done before you go to the next day. So very thankful for that. Thankful for all the staff's hard work for tonight. Everything went smooth, so thank you very much, Lisa. And with that, the only other thing I have is to please keep warm. And with that, the meeting is closed.